Welcome back to my garage talk with coffee in my own personal space. And for those of you who had followed the short to this video, I am going to discuss a little bit about the Ducati 999 and its relation in terms of the design element to the Mag R. I'm calling the Mag R9. Mag stands for Mantis Automotive Guild. R stands for revision. 9 is the 9 type of revision. We built this data a multiple of times. And in the short, I was explaining about this failed piece. There's a reason that I can't be using this ore. And this piece goes here. And why is it so important? Because in this design here, this car focuses on its volume and form. I'm only using one character line or one single motif to emphasize the design. So I want to get it to as accurate as possible that is in the data. So when I scanned those pieces back, here was pretty good. But when I get to the B line, the window, it had some issues. There is some design elements between this guy and this. I will explain that in a moment. So what's happening with this piece was that I've considered this as my mating plane, and I printed on a bed like this to rise up. But in short, what happened was when I first printed this, I ran out of filament and I messed up the timing to refill. And so that filament got jammed in the extruder. I can't move it forward or I can't pull it back. So this piece was overnight and I had to abandon it. Then I went on and printed this piece, but somehow to the bed, this did not stick in the corners. I didn't change any printer settings. And on the same roll of filament I used to print other things, it was happening with the same thing as a test. So it didn't want to stick to the bed. So I think it was the filament that was the issue. But I'd like to give you a quick shot when the door's in. Well, not complete right now. I only have the first section of the door. This door is made of 3 pieces, actually total of 5 pieces and 3 rows. This section here, I think is, to me, this is a very sexy section. It's very deep. I am going to hold this piece up next to it to give you an idea what this might look like when it's in place. In reality, this is a very, very, I can freeze myself here. I don't know, that might be a guy's thing. Because it is my coffee time, I'm going to have a little bit of coffee. Here is my Ducati 2003 999. Why did I buy this bike? When this bike first came out, it was, I think the styling or the design, it was a love and hate because of these round lights where everybody's doing the light cover, right? And then putting their lights inside. Yes, I think Ducati did it this way probably to save the money from the adding that cover, and you just install the projector behind it. And it's because it's round, 2 rounds. It looked a little bit don't belong because there's no other design features on this bike that speaks to the same language. But however, after you look at it for a while, I thought it was kind of interesting and new, and that's my personal taste, and that's the kind of person I am. This have aero. And Ducati, I believe 999 is the first bike that actually have aero that you see on MotoGP today, right? But the MotoGP today had those wings that sticks out for downforce. But this actually is aero. Back in the 90s, in the late 2000s, no bikes had this feature. This was Ducati's first aero. And I'm going to fire it up for you later. When you look at the design itself, it's very simple. As I say, it's timeless in a way. Why? Because its large surface. It's not using a lot of lines to describe its forms. So this is the first bike that had a small tank. Right back in the 90s, even a 750 or 600 Gixxer, you had a tank that was so huge, and it's trying to show people that it's a 1000 cc. But what Ducati did in the opposite was to this is a liter bike, but the tank is so small. When you ride on it, it almost feels like there is no tank. I had a 750 1998 Gixxer before. Compared to this bike, yes, the Gixxer was really nice. It was super smooth. But what I really love about this bike is it gives you a lot of feedback. The vibrations that go through the RPM, and you know exactly where you are without having to look down on that tachometer. So in the late 90s or the early 2000s, you went from that bubble tail to high tail. But this bike had I guess it's coming out from that era. And although it had a fairing that was a high tail, but the muffler itself was hanging down here. And I didn't like that, so I went and built myself a muffler. So I pancaked it. First, I made it out of cardboard. And I took the cardboard, I traced it onto steel, cut it out, and I welded. And then that's what it is. I am turning on the key. Let me show you how many miles I've got on this bike. So it's reading 31,873. So it's got 31,000 miles. This bike's got a lot of miles on it in consideration. There are a lot of people say that, oh, Ducati is not reliable, yada, yada, yada. And high maintenance costs and everything. That's the same as people who's never driven a Porsche. And speaking ill about Porsches, I've got a 986 Boxster, and I love it. So with this Ducati, I have to say, people say it wasn't reliable, things like that, headache. Actually, it's the opposite. It wasn't unreliable. It started up every time, and I used to ride 400 miles on a weekend. So this bike, I have to say, the riding position is quite forward. It's got a lot of distance, and the handlebars are a lot lower comparing to the CBR or the Japanese, GS6Rs. The CBR is it's actually about like here. So you don't have that much weight on your helmet, on the neck. But with this bike, it's definitely not a freeway bike. If you're sitting there riding straight like that for hours, you're not going to be able to pick up your head the next day unless you're very used to it. So we used to go riding on the weekends from, where is that? Three of us, one named Joe, one named Bob. Bob was 72 years old, gentleman that I had met from Herc on the Employees Racing Club. And he wasn't a joke. He, at 72, he's riding faster than any 30-year-old boys. Why? Because I think he was a test rider and he used to race bikes for 32 years. So on this bike, I get about 120 miles on a 2-gallon tank. And every time we go out riding, and we're not talking about riding on the streets, local, he take us out all the way to like Vasquez Canyon, to Gorman, over Fraser, down to 33, where you have like the Fraser Mountain. That's a ski resort. Down to 33, it's desert. And you go to Taft. Taft, there's a diner. We'll take a break at the diner and have some food. Hit the 58 west out to the ocean and come back 101, and I think it's 126, and back down to Gardena. So it's a 400-mile loop between the three of us. Got Bob, got Joe, and myself. Those were some really fun days. I'm always looking for something that's unique. I like timeless plus unique because I believe that timeless plus unique makes a great combination for something that's everlasting. So it's got it in this bike. Why? It's got the odd round lights that it doesn't belong. So it's a bit unique. But after you look at it for a while, it actually looks pretty good. And I don't like those crazy graphics or a bunch of unnecessary design elements. It's a timestamp to me. And so, how does this relate to the MAGR? I think it's in terms of seeking the concept. What I mean by that is this bike achieved a design at the time that was completely different from what everybody was doing. Think of it as the Apple iPhone, right? While everyone was doing flip phones, some kind of a flip function, just because they thought the market wanted it.
Motorola had the
Flip patent for 20 years. Then everybody was doing some kind of flip function. Suddenly, Apple hits everybody with a phone that doesn't flip, just a phone, and it took over the world. So my point is, the person who designed this bike, I have to give them the two thumbs up. It found important elements like timeless and uniqueness. So in my design formula, I always think that it's very important
not chase the trend.
to have to have different crossbreed design,
Thinking.
right? So imagine if you design a car with a wheel loader as a crossbreed element, what would that look like? It suddenly will not look like every other car on the road. And so the approach I have taken for the Mag R is one, I am not doing that monofoam, I'm not doing the monoform wedge. Like when you look at Lamborghinis, most of the exotic cars, they look like a wedge, right? With the windshield sloped so forward. So there's a lot of LMP car inspiration in here, but I didn't take it directly. I have crossbreed it and turned those elements into a styling or design opportunity. I am not going with what everybody is doing, like a light cover, and make your insides bling. I broke it out, used the positive and negative space. I sandwiched the light element in between two blades. And this creates a very unique, so it's not just a clean aerodynamic surface or a streamlined surface. When you look at it from the side, it has a little bit of step and a blade, and it goes in. And I also treated the fenders like a motorcycle. I treated the fenders like a motorcycle fairing. They are not a unibody. They don't belong to the body. It's like a motorcycle fairing where you can take it off. Most cars would have this fender, right, blend into the surface, back out to the front, making it continuous. But I thought, okay, if I wanted to have a LMP feel, LMP have a smaller intake, by the way, but I wanted to have that aspiration. But I also want to be, there's a few criteria actually. Very important criteria is a functionality. I need to be able to control this, the mating. So if I had made this quarter panel a entire piece, that's a very huge piece to make a mold, to finish. But because I broke it out, this itself, the fender, it is its own piece. So when I mold it, it's its own piece. And then the mating line is just here. It's here because you can't see it, right? Because you can't generally see it from this view. Adopting concept from something else, and suddenly now you make everything very, very interesting. So I can only say I love this bike. So little details here, like this guy here, that meets up to the swing arm. And currently it just has about 10 mil clearance. So back in the 90s, production bikes probably wouldn't risk doing that because then, you might have friction breaking points and breaking parts, basically. but the effort that Ducati has put into in making everything looking like it's seamless, this is a very successful design approach. And when you look at the stand, it's not carried over by another bike. When you look at Japanese bikes, their stands are carried over. So this one is molded and shaped to fit, to make it look like it belongs to this surface. Let me give you a little bit of what that exhaust sounds like. Let's fire it up. I haven't fired this thing up forever, and I just did it warm up earlier to make sure it starts up. Okay, I am going to rev it a little bit. This is a muffler or exhaust I made myself. How do you like that? It sounds like MotoGP. With this bike, I have to say, when you go over 80, well, I shouldn't say the number, but when you go over a certain X amount of miles per hour, it actually becomes alive and it's awake. It just feels like it's solid. You know, that's what I love about this bike. When you're cruising under a certain speed, it's just like sleepy, loose, and sloppy. But once you hit over a certain speed, this thing is like it wakes up like a beast. Everything gets tightened up somehow. And, you know, so I've only taken this bike to the track a handful of times. The other times, because of my work, we have a race team and employees race team. I get to take out the race bikes, and so the race bikes have the proper suspension and everything. Wow, and it's got the race tires. So on the track, they're a lot of fun. You can get your on the right condition, you can get your rear wheel to slide. And because there are slicks, right, they grip like heck.